Hey, what's going on, everyone? Zephin here, and I'm with Marty from Focal Point Productions again because he just got the brand new Atem Television Studio HD8 switcher, right? It's a mouthful. And tell me a little bit about like what switchers did you have before from Blackmagic, and then what was kind of the motivation for jumping into this switcher? And then we're going to show everybody what it looks like. We'll kind of run through a couple settings and things like that.
So for most of our live streams, we're either using a TriCaster for our larger jobs, or we were using the Blackmagic Atem SDI Extreme ISO. It's another mouthful. So that was the smaller form factor 8 SDI input that we're using for most of our live streams. Great for small jobs, takes up a small footprint, easy to get into a Pelican case with all of our other converters and things like that.
4 outputs, so you can also run.
Right, it has the program, Multiview, and 2 aux outputs. What we're finding is, though, when we were doing jobs where we had to feed an iMag screen and or a confidence monitor, we really were then adding in the 4 input Extreme SDI and having that control the
like
confidence
one person
monitor.
to manage the aux outputs, but another person to manage like the live stream switch separately.
Right. So we needed another switcher. We needed to use the aux outs to get those inputs into outputs into the other one. We needed more decimators and converters. And I needed another person to manage that switcher because it was, over here, not over here.
And it's not that you couldn't do it on the main switcher. It's just you don't have the buttons to control.
There's no
outputs.
buttons. Yeah.
You'd have to get a Stream Deck, or you'd have to make some macros up, or like a laptop, and then be able to control the outputs.
And with most jobs, we're coming with 2 hours to set up, so we don't have that time to make new macros and do things like that. So those are some of the reasons where I wanted to upgrade and get this new switcher.
Okay. Well, should we take a look at it and kind of run through a little bit?
Sure.
Let's do it. So here's the new switcher, and it's pretty big. It's probably, this is definitely bigger than the 1ME advanced panel that I have to control my 2ME Constellation.
And this is also larger than the other similar Atem switchers that they have. Usually they're like here. So these are just like a little bit bigger. So I ordered a new Pelican case, which should be here today, that I can get the sucker in to transport it.
Does the focal point sticker come?
That comes with everyone. Everyone's
Yeah.
going to come with that, yeah.
And then, but one thing it didn't come with that everyone should know about, just in case they don't understand Blackmagic gear, doesn't come with.
Doesn't come with a power cable. Doesn't come with the USB-C cable. So make sure you have an extra power cable on hand. It's just a traditional IEC cable. So I have a bunch of those. So that wasn't a problem. So the big features that made me want to upgrade and spend, $4,000 on this switcher, really just some small things that I was looking for. Like we were saying, having buttons to control the outputs to the auxiliary outputs. So we have aux 1, aux 2. I can change what's going to those auxes by either hitting them here, inputs 1 through 8, program and multi-view, or over here on this strip is what's also feeding those separate auxiliaries that I can very quickly and easily change what's going to those 2 auxes.
All right, very nice. Nice change of pace.
Yeah, so that makes it a lot easier. So now one person can do the aux feeds and also do the main show.
And it sounds like that somebody, like if you wanted a second person to be running auxes, they could be on a computer or a Stream Deck or anything. Like you still have that flexibility to throw somebody else into running that if you want.
And if we're doing a small gig, like most of our projects are crew-wise, one person can do it all. Also, what I liked is, we have a program and preview row. So we can be safe and be positive in what we have coming up in our next shot, where with the Atem, you only had the program row, and you could hit that and then hit cut. But I just like having a program and preview row coming off of a TriCaster and those control surfaces. Just much more comfortable with this.
Right.
Another feature that I like is having buttons for our 2 downstream keyers to get our lower third names in or bugs in. We have buttons for those. Yeah, you could do this on the smaller Atem Extremes, but you needed to make a macro or you needed to use the software to have your downstream keyers come up.
All right. And then I love the form factor here. I mean, it's a very, very sexy switcher. Now, this one, another big piece that's different is it's got 2 terabytes of built-in memory, which you can actually see on the multi-view up here. So it shows you the 2 terabytes, and that's accessible. We haven't actually figured out getting into it yet, but I believe it's just over the network. You're able to get the files and drag them off.
I believe, yeah, when you're on the same network, you can kind of network into it to get those files off.
And one other thing that I saw was different on this one is you really have a lot more control over sound up here.
Yep. So you have all of your audio inputs, and you have banks 1 and 2. So banks 1 is cameras 1 through 8. Bank 2 is your microphone, XLR, and RCA inputs, and then those MADI digital audio inputs. You also have be able to change the volumes for your different audio outputs, the headset, the control room output, studio output. One thing to note though is that this doesn't have a regular headphone jack.
Okay.
It only has the 5-pin headphone jack, which can be used for headphones or for intercom.
So you'd have to probably get I'm sure there's an adapter to be able to convert that.
I need to look into that. I mean, I don't want to buy an expensive intercom headset just to monitor audio.
And that's because we're already using wireless intercoms separately anyways, so it just doesn't really play a role in most of our setups.
Exactly. So I need to see, can I plug headphones into the control room outputs? Do I need to get speakers? I do have in my rack mount case over here, I do have the Blackmagic speaker 1 RU unit. So I'm really using this to monitor my audio. But this is like the main audio I want to be able to have. And I can plug headphones in here, but usually I like to be able to plug headphones into the switcher so I can solo an input. That way I can listen to just that input by itself in kind of preview mode, not just with what's going out to the audience.
And real quick, talk me through like what's in this rack case. Why did you build this? Why is this gonna mostly come out with this switcher? Like, how is this complementing what you're doing here with this switcher?
So kind of right here in the middle, this SDI distribution is kind of the main hub. So I'm taking my main program output into this SDI distribution, which now takes that one output and gives me 8 outputs. So from those 8 outputs, I have 2 of them go into these record decks. So this is my main record. This one says play. I can use it for playback or also as a backup recorder. It's also going out to a web presenter. It's going out to a Ultra Studio monitor, Ultra Studio capture card. So I can use Wirecast or OBS or vMix in the capture card as my encoder.
Which you shouldn't need because you could use the USB-C on this guy now, but it's nice.
But if you want to have a separate laptop, if you want a separate computer doing the encoding versus doing the software, I use Teradek Cube encoders and a Teradek Go for my live streaming. So as my encoders, so I can connect those to the SDI distribution box. So really, that gives me the one output to here to going to everything. It also goes over here to the top, which is the speakers, so I can hear our program audio. We have a couple more hyperdecks for recording ISOs or playback or backup recorders if we want to do different file formats of Apple ProRes and MP4.
So you just have a good wide range of backup stuff that you could bring in.
And this really can do everything that I need on a job. We also have then a video hub here. So this is a 12-in, 12-out video hub. If we need more flexibility with routing and doing, if these auxes can't do everything we need to do, we can use this video hub if we need to send signals to other destinations.
You could like split off some PowerPoint slides or a Zoom computer or whatever else you need to just send it to other outside TVs and stuff like that.
Exactly. Also, we have a power unit in here, and then down over here in this what looks like an empty spot in the very back is a switch for connecting a 5-port switch.
Nice. Well, let's hop over just to the Atem software control just to show people. It's pretty much the same across the board. It's not any different just because it's a different Atem. Of course, you've got your access to all 8 camera inputs, downstream keyers, all that stuff is in the same place. And then as far as the outputs go, we saw that you can adjust the auxiliary outputs through the menu bar at the top of the screen, just like normal. So there we're getting aux1 and aux2. But one important thing to note that some people may not know is that this does have 8 SDI outputs, but those are meant to be return feeds to send program back to a Blackmagic camera. So if someone wanted to see a program return feed to tell what camera's up or what's on screen.
So those 8 SDI outputs that are kind of paired with the camera inputs are meant to do a couple of things. One, to send a return program feed back to a Blackmagic camera. Also, that's what sends the control signals to Blackmagic cameras to have full control over the cameras.
Color, zoom, focus.
Yeah, exactly. And also for talkback, if you're using the intercom, that's what sends it back. We're not using Blackmagic cameras. We're not using the intercom. So in the settings, I turned off talkback going to those SI outputs just in case we did some of it by accident. So really, as far as I know, I can use those 8 outputs as additional program feeds.
So backup recording or
so really I don't
screen.
need this. So really in that case I really don't need this.
Right.
Because I have 8 extra outputs on here. So still keeping it in, still using that, my primary workflow. That way if I am using this, maybe I'm going on a trip and I can't get this big thing, I can use my regular small Atem Extreme and that kit still will work perfectly because it has that SI distribution box in it.
So really what's nice with this rack kit, and this is a 6U rack kit, is that this is kind of made not specifically for this switcher. It's made for really all switchers, and just kind of having this backup road case that's kind of I would call it a Swiss Army knife, I guess. And then one thing that we were kind of looking around for in the settings here was, everyone's going to want to know eventually, how do we get in these remote feeds? Because there is an ability to bring in some remote cameras here that are off-site over the network. So in the settings, what tab was that under, by the way? It was
under
settings,
sources,
and then in sources we've got this remote source setup, and then it's going to give you an option to put in an IP address, the port, and then it'll tell you, I guess, the status if it is connected. Looks like you can also retry that connection if you have any trouble getting it the first time around.
And then another new setting that's on here is 1 second.
Stand by, technical difficulties. So in the actual Atem setup settings, that's the separate application.
So I have noticed some kind of bugs in here. I always have to, when I connect to the control software, oddly enough, I have to unplug the USB-C and plug it back in again for it to work. I've also had this issue before where now I can't go into the setup software. It's
so maybe there's something that needs to get fixed in an update.
I have noticed some bugs with connectivity between the two programs, but when you do go into the Atem setup program, it allows you to connect the switcher to your Google Drive and Dropbox account. So you can make it so that it'll automatically upload those recordings to Dropbox or to Google Drive. You can also make it so that it will download assets to the switcher. I don't see myself using those features, but it's just good to know. It's just good to know that it's there for
There's
you.
some cloud backup.
Right.
And I don't know that we're always streaming on internet connections that would support uploading ISO
Right.
files.
I mean, my worry is, if we're on location somewhere, if I'm using a hotspot, or I just have slow internet, I don't want this thing eating up any bandwidth, uploading or downloading and maxing out my hotspots, or using up all the bandwidth, doing something in the background. So I really don't connect this. Even though this has a built-in encoder, I don't use it for an encoder. I use it as a switcher, and I use other devices as my encoder. So really, I don't connect this to the public internet. I usually have it on my own private network that it can talk to my computer. It can talk to the hyperdecks, and things like that.
And real quick, can we show people the back just to get an idea of what the inputs and outputs look like? Turn this guy around here just to see up close and personal. So let's see. On the left side here, we've got, looks like they can do power through a 4-pin connector, time code out, MADI out, time code in, MADI in. We've got a bunch of Ethernet ports here. So we've got TalkBack, we've got our 2 USB ports, and then our SDI outputs, inputs are aux 1 and 2, program, Multiview, and it looks like, okay, so is this an HDMI Multiview and an SDI Multiview?
Correct.
Okay.
Now they're the same. One thing that I do wish is, because I do have, I have 8 camera inputs, I have 2 media players, I have, my streaming settings, my recording settings, you can have the audio meters on here, you can have, all these windows. But I wish you could use the HDMI and the SDI as two multi-views, two separate multi-views with different feeds on them, like you can do with some of the other higher end Blackmagic
Yeah, like the
switchers.
Constellation 2ME's got two SDI outputs that can
So you
be
can have two
used for.
separate feeds on your monitors, but this one it's one. So I mean, I really like seeing program and preview. I just wish I had more than 8 windows, because if I am doing 8 cameras, I then I have a lot of options of what I can
Yeah, if you
show
go into the
in
multi-view
my
settings,
multi-view. I mean,
then
we have
you
8
can
cam.
click on the top two as well, and you can split that into 4.
Yeah, but then I lose my program preview.
Right.
So I have a lot of options. I have 8 cameras, my media players, Super Source, aux1, aux2, recording status, streaming status, audio status. I wish I could have a second multi-view. I wish there was HDMI and SDI showing separate things, and
Yeah.
I could see everything, but I can't.
And it would be nice to even be able to see like your aux outputs on one, so that like you
I
can
know
confirm
it's sending,
like
right.
this is what's going to the confidence monitor, or this is what's going to the iMag screens or whatever.
Right. So I lose that flex. You don't have that as an option because you only have one multi-view display.
All right, well, very exciting stuff. It's nice to see the new switcher here, and I think we'll need to play around and learn a little bit more about what the different settings are, and all the additional controls that you have now, especially with this section up top, I think. And then being able to add in those cameras over the network. I think we need to figure out pulling footage off of this as well. So how do you pull off those recordings from that built-in storage, which is a glorious 2 terabyte internal storage that you can see there. And then, of course, you can plug in an external disk as well over the USB-C connection. So that's a really nice feature to have, that kind of built-in ability.
Yeah. So with the built-in, it gives you 10 hours of doing all ISOs, or
So
it
8
gives you like
ISOs.
300 hours of doing just program.
Nice. That's a lot. It gives you a lot of time.
Yep.
So that's a quick run through on the Atem Television Studio HD8 ISO? There's an ISO?
Yep, ISO.
There's an ISO after it. Okay, so that's a run through of the Atem Television Studio HD8 ISO. I think we're excited to play around with it and see what else we can do, learn more about the networking capabilities, and yeah, it will be cool to see you kind of putting this into play. I'm kind of curious how big that Pelican case has to be
I'll be here
to
today.
put that in, because I know I have like the biggest Pelican vault case for the Atem 1ME control panel, and that's already pretty huge. So I'm sure it's got to be a little bit bigger to fit this guy. But exciting times, new switchers, and thanks for watching. Make sure to leave a comment below if you have some questions, and we'll try to figure out if we can answer them for you. If not, I'll be at NAB in a month, and then I can ask Blackmagic myself.
Cool. Thanks.